the charts that show that Medicare is going broke. By the year 2017, there will be no money. Right now, we are taking more out of the Medicare trust fund than is going in. Now, don't we have an obligation to the young people in this room as well as the seniors? Have we forgotten our obligation to future generations of Americans? I don't think so. I don't think Americans feel that way. I think Americans want to take care of future generations as well as this one. And it's going broke. You need a little straight talk. It's going broke. It's unsustainable. And then you crank in these inflation that I talked about earlier, and so we need to fix it, and we need to fix it quickly. So I would be glad to answer any questions or comments that you have, including for those who have a shirt on that say, "What's your plan?" That's my plan. So I'll answer those in just a minute, okay? I want to talk about two other things with you real quick. One of them you may have just noticed, but I think it's symptomatic of a lot of things about America and the world. You may have seen it, that in Burma, long ways away, halfway around the world, a country that many of us have never paid much attention to, that there's a bunch of thugs that run that country that are now beating up and executing monks, imprisoning people, shooting people in the street because they want to have a democracy. Their leader is a woman named Aung San Suu Kyi. She is a Nobel Peace Prize winner. She's been kept under house arrest for 13 of the last 15 years. Her husband died alone of cancer some years ago because if she had left to go be with her husband, they would never have let her back into the country. As you know, a week or two ago, the monks, the most revered people in these countries in Asia, demonstrated peacefully against these bunch of thugs, and you know what they did. They shot them, they beat them, they imprisoned them, and my friends, this kind of thing has got to stop. And I can tell you the people that have the most influence over them, the Chinese, and the Chinese have done almost nothing. And the fact is that the people of this country deserve far better. So keep them in your prayers. We need to get other countries in Asia to put severe sanctions and restrictions on trade and everything else with them to try to relieve the oppression and suffering of a group of innocent people who are mostly Buddhist, very peaceful people, who are, as we speak, being imprisoned, killed, and mistreated to a way that people shouldn't be mistreated in the 21st century. Iraq. I know we were all saddened and frustrated by the war in Iraq. It failed for nearly 4 years because we had a failed strategy under Secretary Rumsfeld. I fought against it, I argued against it, and I argued for the strategy that is now succeeding. And by the way, I was strongly criticized by many Republicans because of my opposition to what I saw was a clear failed strategy. The Rumsfeld strategy was to go into places, kill people, and leave. It was the same, frankly, for those of us that remember the Vietnam War. That was the old failed search and destroy strategy. And I argued for what General Abrams did when he came in, and that is that you go in and you kill the bad guys and you stay. And you don't let the bad guys come back in, and you provide an environment of security, social progress, political progress, and people can lead normal lives. Today there are large parts of Iraq that are much safer than they were as short a time ago as 6 months ago. And I won't go into all the details with you, but the strategy is succeeding. The Democrats wanted to set a date for withdrawal. My friends, a date for withdrawal can best be described by what the president of Iran said approximately 2 weeks ago. The president of Iran, remember the president of Iran, the guy that was at Columbia University, remember the guy that said that their mission is to wipe Israel off the map. Same country that's sending the most lethal explosives into Iraq from Iran and killing American soldiers, said, and I quote, "The Americans will leave Iraq and they'll leave a void and we will fill it. The Iranians will fill it." Now, I can't describe it any better as to what's at stake there. And I'd be glad to talk to you about all the other options and what we could do and what we can't do. But in my view, we have to succeed. Success is Iraqis taking over more and more of the military responsibilities, our guys, our military withdrawing, and the political, economic, and social process moving forward. That's basically what a successful strategy is about. What's the problem? One of the problems is the Maliki government. They are not functioning effectively. They are not functioning effectively, and they're going to have to at some point. What's another problem? The Iraqi police are still corrupt, and there's big problems with them. There's a lot of local political progress being made on the ground, but there's going to have to be other improvements as well. But compared to 6 or 7 months ago, the situation has changed rather significantly, and I believe if we can make the same progress in the next 6 months that we did in the last 6 months, we'll be okay. It's become too political. The Majority Leader of the United States Senate, Harry Reid, said the war is lost. Well, if the war is lost, who won? Al-Qaeda? Senator Schumer from New York said, we'll win seats because of this war. Congressman from South Carolina said, if we succeed in Iraq, it will harm our Democrats' plans. My friends, what the Democrats haven't understood is that presidents don't lose wars, and political parties don't lose wars. Nations lose wars. And when nations lose wars, nations lose consequences. And there's at least one person here in this room, and I'm sure others, that remember the last time we lost a war and what happened to our military. I'll tell you what happened to our military. We had race riots on our aircraft carriers. We had rampant drug use. We had desertions. Our military was broken. And it took Ronald Reagan and a decade to restore our military to the strength that it once was before. Our Guard and Reserve is being deployed and fighting more bravely than any Guard and Reserve in history. More so than any that we've ever been asked to do. And they're doing it magnificently. And they're overstressed and badly. But there's only one thing worse than an overstressed military, and that's a defeated military. Now, I'd like to conclude by saying, and then I'll be glad to respond to any questions or comments you have, that many of the political pundits, in fact, I was just on the radio with one just before I came in this room, saying that McCain has really harmed his chances to be President of the United States because of his support for this strategy in Iraq. I don't disagree with that. I don't think it's harmed me badly, but I'll accept that verdict. And every once in a while, something happens to me that puts it all in the right perspective. And what happened to me about 5 weeks ago, I was in Wolfboro, New Hampshire. A woman stood up at a town hall meeting just like this, only there were several hundred people there. She stood up, she said, Senator McCain, will you wear a bracelet with my son's name on it? He was Matthew Stanley, 19 years old. He was killed outside of Baghdad just before Christmas last year. And I said, I would be honored to wear this bracelet with your son's name on it. And then she said, Senator McCain, I want you to just promise me one thing. Just promise me one thing, and that is you'll do everything in your power to make sure that my son's death was not in vain. My friends, that puts everything into the perspective with which it deserves, which obviously makes political ambitions a far, far distant second or third behind that kind of request from a mother who has made an enormous sacrifice. And I also want to conclude by reminding you of what you already know. The young men and women who are serving in the military today are the bravest, they're the best equipped, best trained, most professional military we've ever had in our history. A couple of months ago, these young men were going outside of their forward operating base, putting into 135-degree heat, putting on 40 pounds of body armor, 40 pounds of equipment, and going out and fighting all day long. Remarkable. And the good thing about it is, no matter how we feel about this conflict, all of us support the young people who in the armed services and are fighting so bravely. So the next time you see one, just go over in the airport or any place else in uniform, just go over and say thanks for serving. They really appreciate that. Thanks very much for having me, and I'm ready to answer any questions or comments. Yes, ma'am.
Hi. I'm concerned about the report